How could I have anticipated that moment would transform my life entirely? It began as an unremarkable day until I stepped into that room. As I caught sight of the door ajar, an unsettling sensation stirred within me in an instant. I could have retreated, brushed it aside, yet I chose not to, for in that instant of recognition, I understood that everything would change from that point onward. Indeed, I bear the responsibility in this situation, for it was I who initiated the course of events and failed to bring it to a halt. George existed. Are you at your place of employment? The house lay in stillness, yet I could discern soft sounds drifting down from the upper floor. Elliot found himself in the confines of his room. Initially, it didn't seem significant to me. A fleeting instance of a young man adrift in the depths of his own imagination. Perhaps he would enjoy a cup of coffee. A brief exchange could prove delightful. Ascending the staircase, I endeavored to discern the source of the mysterious sounds echoing around me. As I approached his room, I observed that the door was slightly open. I inhaled deeply, poised to summon him, yet my gaze fell upon Elliot. He sat on his bed, laptop resting on his lap, the bright screen illuminating his face with a soft glow. His hands were in motion, and initially, I assumed he was merely captivated by something thrilling. Perhaps a thrilling action film? Yet, as I shifted my stance, altering my perspective, a wave of pallor washed over me. In that instant, clarity washed over me, and I understood precisely what Elliot was up to. The reflection on the screen captured my gaze, and an icy wave surged through me. This caught me by surprise. This was not a sight I had wished to behold. Elliot hurriedly fumbled, striving to regain his composure, as he anxiously adjusted the volume on his laptop. Yet the moment had slipped away. The moment had come and gone. As our gazes intertwined, a flush crept across his face, the embarrassment in his eyes unmistakable. "Apologies," he murmured, his gaze drifting elsewhere. I found myself immobilized, as if time had come to a standstill. Is it the door?" I began, yet I found myself utterly lost in the very essence of my message. Peculiar warmth enveloped me, embarrassment washed over me, yet my thoughts surged like a tempest, elusive and just out of reach. I hurriedly exited the room, my heart racing within my chest. I pressed my palms against my face, striving to find a rhythm in my breath. What on earth was that? I murmured softly to myself. What had I just accomplished? What had driven me to such carelessness? Was I truly the sole one to blame in this situation? "Cease this, Darlene," I admonished myself firmly. Yet, the turmoil within me was ignited by forces beyond merely what my eyes had witnessed. Elliot had reached the age of 23. He had outgrown his childhood. Yet, at 47, I was a woman who had borne the weight of shame throughout my life. Never before had I found myself in such a predicament, yet the sensation of shame was all too familiar. I remained motionless in the hallway, my heart pounding fiercely within my chest. I swept my fingers through my hair, attempting to regain my composure. As Elliot stepped into the room, he fiddled with the collar of his shirt, cleared his throat, and averted his gaze. "Darlene, I apologize. I believed I had shut the door," he murmured, his tone wavering yet earnest. I swiftly averted my gaze, shaking my head in denial. "I must confess, it is I who should extend my apologies. I should have knocked before coming in," I said hurriedly, grasping for words that eluded me. Stillness. Yet this silence was unlike any other. For years, we had shared the same home. Yet this moment marked the first time our gazes intertwined in such a profound way. It was the first instance where such tension hung between us. "I ought to make my way downstairs and begin the preparations for dinner," I remarked, swiftly pivoting toward the staircase. My voice quivered, yet I endeavored to maintain my composure. Elliot remained silent. He merely tracked my movements with his gaze, as though he were attempting to assemble fragments of a puzzle in his thoughts. Before the significant events unfolded between Elliot and me, remember to subscribe to my channel, activate notifications, and stay tuned for the entirety of this tale. I assure you, a wave of excitement is on the horizon. Up until that evening, silence hung between us, unbroken by a single word. Silence reigns, devoid of messages, glances, or even the faintest exchange of pleasantries. Yet that silence, it murmured that nothing would ever return to its former state. During dinner, we occupied the same table, yet our eyes remained averted from one another. The solitary sound echoed in the air, a delicate clinking of silverware meeting the surface of our plates. It was essential for us to converse, to alleviate the strain that hung in the air. We were both aware of it, yet the question lingered. How? The night slipped away, followed by the dawn of another day, and then yet another followed in its wake. All appeared to be as it should, yet beneath the surface, nothing was as it seemed. The quiet between us only served to amplify the unseen tension that lingered in the air. On a seemingly ordinary afternoon, Elliot took a seat beside me. His eyes betrayed a flicker of uncertainty, yet the desire to mend what was broken shone through unmistakably. Darlene, regarding the events of the other day, I find myself feeling quite embarrassed. I apologize. I never wished for circumstances to unfold in this manner. I sincerely hope this doesn't jeopardize our relationship. He spoke, his voice trembling yet earnest. With a deep inhalation, I steadied myself. Regardless of how peculiar and unforeseen this situation was, it was essential for me to soothe his nerves. I offered a small smile, gave a slight shrug, and remarked, "Oh, Elliot, trust me, I've experienced my share of mortifying moments throughout the years." Subsequently, I recounted several of those moments to him. His smile softened, and he nodded, the flush of embarrassment diminishing just a bit. In that instant, it felt as though the weight of the tension that had hung between us had finally dissipated. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware. Nothing had genuinely transpired. Despite the apparent improvement in our circumstances, this conversation had utterly dissolved the barriers that once separated us, and I could sense it deeply. The situation was on the brink of escalating to unprecedented heights. Elliot emitted a soft chuckle, his eyes drifting down to the table. "I suppose we're even now," he murmured softly. I cast a subtle frown and shifted my gaze toward him. "Could you clarify what you mean?" I inquired, a hint of curiosity lacing my tone. For a fleeting moment, his expression transformed, as if he had just come to the unsettling realization that he had uttered words he could never retract. He massaged the nape of his neck, pausing for a fleeting moment. Yet he had already begun, and now he found himself compelled to press on. He inhaled deeply, casting his gaze aside as he whispered, "I've seen you. In much the same manner, you simply weren't aware of it." A jolt of electricity surged through my body. I stood still, caught in a fleeting moment of stillness. "What is this?" I murmured, feeling the heaviness of his words bearing down upon me. Elliot's cheeks burned with color, yet he pressed on undeterred. I kept it to myself, burdened by a sense of shame. Yet it remained etched in my memory. In truth, it was a secret of mine, a thought that lingered persistently in my mind. My heart raced with fervor. Peculiar warmth enveloped my being, the unfamiliar feeling that whispered to me that something was different. Elliot's words transcended mere confession. They broke down every final barrier that separated us. My gaze fell upon him. His gaze was fixed upon me as well. At this point, we were both acutely aware that this was no mere exchange of words. The atmosphere in the room had grown dense. A profound transformation had taken place. From that moment forward, everything transformed. A chasm had always existed between us in the past. The unseen divide that held us at a distance. Yet now it seemed as though that boundary had utterly dissolved. Unbeknownst to me, I found myself dedicating an increasing amount of time to Elliot. Petite instances, conversations that appear trivial. Yet, in truth, each instance merely intensified the strain that existed between us. We found ourselves sitting side by side, immersed in the world of movies together. In the past, we maintained a certain distance from one another. Yet, an unvoiced attraction lingered in the air between us, a sentiment we both sensed, yet chose to leave unspoken. At times, as Elliot's arm lay casually on the couch, and my hand grazed his leg, or when our laughter mingled in the air, an unfamiliar sensation stirred within me. Yet I made an effort to push it from my mind. On a restless night, slumber eluded me. Restlessly, I turned and twisted beneath the sheets. Yet the turmoil within me refused to be silenced. Perhaps there existed but a singular thought occupying my mind. Elliot, this simply cannot continue. I found it necessary to establish a boundary. If he harbored any feelings for me, I needed to express it clearly and bring it to an end. With that thought lingering in my mind, I rose from the bed. My heart raced uncontrollably, yet my feet had already led me to Elliot's room. The door stood ajar, allowing a soft glow to spill into the dimly lit room. Upon entering, my gaze fell upon him. He lay in slumber. Yet, in that instant, my gaze was not fixed upon him. They were captivated by something entirely different, something monumental. My breath hitched. My body became momentarily still. Witnessing him in that state unleashed a tempest within me. It was something I was never meant to witness. In that moment, I ought to have pivoted without hesitation. However, I did not. I lingered in that moment, grappling with the emotions swirling within me. In that moment, I swiftly withdrew. Within me, a force stirred, one I struggled to contain, yet I chose to turn a blind eye to it. I made my way back to my room and reclined, yet everything felt irrevocably altered. That night, I remained blissfully unaware of the intricate twists that awaited me. No matter how hard I tried, I found myself unable to resist the deepening bond with Elliot. As the days unfolded, the lines between us faded further, and the attraction we felt deepened with each moment. It escaped my notice how deeply I had ventured into this situation. Yet one truth stood clear. Retreat was slipping beyond my grasp, and then Elliot returned home in that manner. He was inebriated. The clatter of the door, the objects he disturbed, the cacophony resonated. George has been awakened. Yet, I understood the struggle George faced each morning to rise from his slumber. I swiftly exited my room and made my way to Elliot. Before I knew it, I found myself standing right next to him, with barely a moment to adjust my clothes. Elliot's gaze drifted, a subtle smile dancing at the corners of his mouth. "Darlene, do you truly exist?" he muttered softly. His words tumbled out, thickened by the haze of alcohol, yet remains genuine. I inhaled deeply and seized his arm. "Elliot, let's go. It is not permissible to ascend the stairs in this manner. Silence is essential." Yet, Elliot's gaze was fixed upon my visage. He offered a gentle smile, his eyes gradually wandering across my form. "It's quite clear that you possess a certain quality. Exquisite. Have you always possessed this nature? Or was it that I simply overlooked it?" I paused for a moment, but then swiftly regained my composure. "Elliot, that will suffice. Step into the kitchen. I shall prepare a cup of coffee for you." I guided him with deliberate care toward the kitchen. I attempted to bring him back to reality, Yet the intensity of Elliot's stare and the words spilling from his lips caused a disarray within me as well. Elliot settled into the chair as I busied myself with the coffee, but in an unexpected moment, the cup slipped from his grasp, cascading its contents across the counter. "Ah, Elliot, you must exercise more caution," I murmured, hastily attempting to tidy the chaos. Yet Elliot merely smiled gently. "Have you always possessed this sweetness?" I swiftly tidied the kitchen. We could no longer remain in this place. George lay in slumber upstairs, yet with Elliot in such a condition, he knew he must refrain from any further noise. "Very well, we shall ascend to the upper floor. But hush now," I cautioned, wrapping my arm around his and steering him toward the stairs. Upon entering his room, it became evident that his movements had grown increasingly unsteady. He found himself in desperate need of a change of clothes, yet he was too disoriented to manage it alone. Initially, I felt the urge to retreat, yet upon witnessing his struggle with the shirt, I found myself compelled to lend a hand. As my fingers grazed the buttons of his shirt, Elliot's breath became a measured whisper. In that instant, the atmosphere crackled with the weight of unspoken words between us. The stillness amplified the intensity. I was acutely aware of my actions, yet paradoxically, I found myself in a state of utter confusion. Elliot's gaze held a new intensity as it fell upon me, and this was one of those instances we could never reclaim. Elliot paused, caught in a moment of uncertainty as he changed his clothes. He allowed his hands to drop to his sides, fixing his gaze upon me. In that moment, I became aware that my breath had grown rapid. The silence enveloped the room, the air thick and oppressive, rendering each breath a laborious task. "I'm done with this game, Darlene," he declared, his voice initially gentle yet brimming with conviction. I gazed at him, my eyes unyielding and unblinking. My heart raced with intensity. What was it that Elliot sought to convey? "Are you," he added, his voice taking on a deeper resonance. "So we only managed to catch a glimpse of one another that one time, and that's all there is to it? Do you truly not contemplate it at all? It lingers in your thoughts as you drift into slumber." A shiver coursed through my body, prompting me to take a hesitant step back, yet my feet remained stubbornly anchored to the ground. "Elliot, this isn't right," I insisted, though my voice quavered. Elliot's smile was subtle, yet it carried a hint of something far from innocent. "We crossed the threshold of determining what is right long ago, Darlene. Cease the self-deception." He advanced a step, and yet another. He was so near now that I could sense his breath brushing against my skin. He lifted his hand, his fingers brushing softly against my cheek. I found myself unable to divert my gaze, despite the urge to do so, for beneath the surface I understood he was indeed correct. In that moment, Elliot's lips brushed against mine. The stillness envelopes, a palpable tension hangs in the air. In that fleeting instant lay the solution to it all. The cacophony of thoughts swirling in my mind abruptly fell silent, every doubt of mine dissolving into mere whispers, because I had not stood my ground against Elliot. In all honesty, the desire had never been mine. My hands quivered, yet I remained steadfast, refusing to withdraw. Upon witnessing the fierce resolve in Elliot's gaze, I realized that all secrets had been laid bare. I inhaled deeply, my heart racing, as I gently eased the straps of my garment down my shoulders. "You're right, Elliot," I whispered, my voice scarcely rising above a breath. "It's time to put an end to this charade." As I closed the distance between us entirely, I reclined on the bed. My heart raced within my chest, yet retreating was no longer a possibility. Elliot gradually inclined his body toward me. He gazed into my eyes for a fleeting moment, then offered a smile. "Do not fear," he said, his voice imbued with warmth and reassurance. All is as it should be. I turned my gaze, a chill coursing through my body. Though I couldn't bring myself to acknowledge it, deep down, I was acutely aware of the duration of my anticipation for this moment. Yet, despite my efforts, the words escaped my lips uncontrollably. Elliot, I admitted, my breath hitching, a sense of fear creeping in due to a few significant matters. Elliot, I confessed, my breath hitching, a sense of unease washing over me due to a few significant matters. Elliot smiled, brushing aside my words as though they pleased him. Perhaps it was due to his inebriation. Elliot leaned in close, his voice barely a whisper. George mustn't wake up. I understood his meaning. Silence was essential. I find myself at a loss. A tremendous force surged within me, compelling me to stifle any sound that threatened to escape. Elliot gazed at me and uttered, I know, Darlene, all is well, and you are too. What was it that he understood? It seems he discerned my thoughts and grasped my essence. Unable to resist, I surrendered to the moment and let my eyelids fall shut. My hands gripped the sheets with a fierce intensity, while my body quaked and convulsed uncontrollably. I pressed my hands against my mouth, stifling any sound that threatened to escape. Elliot was inebriated to the point of indifference, oblivious to the world around him. This was, in fact, having a significant impact on me. The thrill of the occasion intertwined with all that surrounded it, and the captivating sensation of something monumental. Elliot found himself inebriated, fatigued, and gasping for air. I exclaimed, Elliot, you're flushed, and we must move quickly. Elliot replied, All right. He replied, All right. Yet he continued down that same path again and again endlessly. Another contraction gripped me, and in that moment, nothing else mattered. I had lost all sense of who I was. I shut my eyes and whispered, Whatever you desire, Elliot, whatever you desire. Elliot must have enjoyed it, for he surrendered himself completely. He released all his hold, and that proved to be overwhelming. The intensity within me was overwhelming. I gently placed Elliot in his bed, tucking him in snugly. After that, I secured the door to his bedroom. I yearned for a serene shower, a moment to unwind and let go of the day's burdens. Uncertainty loomed over me, leaving me in suspense about what would unfold next. What had just transpired? As I stood under the cascading water, my mind wandered to the thoughts that plagued me, stirring a sense of nervousness and unease within me. And yet, as I emerged, a newfound clarity enveloped my thoughts. Strangely, I found myself enveloped in a sense of tranquility. I found it impossible to feel anger towards myself, for my body was as serene as my mind. In quietude, I adorned myself, made my way to the bed, and surrendered to slumber as though the world had remained untouched. Yet, the reality is that this was merely a fleeting moment of exhilaration, a surge of unbridled longing. Yet, simplicity was a fleeting illusion. What about this? This was not destined to remain uncomplicated, either. The journey did not conclude at this point. It was impossible. Greater events unfolded, things that are more intense. Ultimately, George was destined to uncover the entire truth. The tale is far from concluded. Be sure to follow and subscribe to stay updated on the unfolding events ahead. Activate notifications and share your thoughts in the comments. Keeps you a step ahead in crafting these narratives. Your support is invaluable. Thank you for staying with me through this journey.